So what's the latest on the Apple Watch Series 10? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. So we all know that the Apple Watch Series 10 is shipping in about a month. It's going to be shipping alongside the iPhone 16. And we've all heard a bunch of rumors. We've heard these different websites come out with all these different rumors about the Series 10. But I'm going to go ahead as of August 19th and put those all together from what I've kind of found from all the different professionals out there and tell you what we think is coming for sure on the Series 10 in just about a month. So sit back and relax. We're going to go through all the different changes we think that are coming. Some of them are pretty shocking, to tell you the truth. So let's get into them. All right, so the biggest change I think in all is going to be the actual watch sizes are all getting bigger across the board, all larger, which is very concerning for some. We'll get into that in a second. But if you can imagine this, it says right now the smaller watch is growing from 41 millimeters to 45 millimeters. That's a pretty big jump of 4 millimeter on just the smaller watch itself. The larger on the Series 10 watch is going to actually go from 45 millimeters to 49 millimeters, all right? So what does this basically mean? It says that basically this means that the small watch will now be the size of the larger watch, and the larger watch is actually going to be the size of the Ultra, if you can imagine that. So it's going to go from being just the 41 millimeters all the way up to 45 millimeters for the smallest one you can get on the 10 series. And that's really got a lot of people concerned. And then the big one obviously goes all the way up to the Ultra. So how concerned are people? Let's talk about it right here. All right, some of the comments over here, they're kind of funny, but this guy says, I'm a guy with a 17.5 centimeter wrist. I've never measured my wrist, but this guy has, which is pretty average, and I definitely prefer the small stainless steel 41 millimeter. He basically says it looks the size of a traditional watch, and he says he does, basically, I don't want a larger fitness tracker on my wrist 24/7. He does a lot of exercise, such as weights, canoeing, and rowing, and 41 millimeters, he says, is more stable and tracks better. This person down here says, I like the smaller too, wish there was a smaller option coming, not sure I'll be getting this year's watch. They don't like it. It says, if Apple can bump up the small watch screen size without making the case larger, then it might make sense, but the small watch case is now going to be the size of the large watch case. That is going to be that's going to totally alienate me, their female user base actually. In particular, just about every woman I know who has an Apple Watch has opted for the smaller model, which is actually really, that's concerning if you think about it, right? I think Apple has to think about this, and it goes on and on. So there's a whole bunch of people talking about this in here. So why in the world would Apple actually do this? Well, we'll get into it in a second, but there's a couple other reasons why, and we'll talk about them, but the processor could be changing. They might need some more room for cooling to obviously deal with the AI enhancements coming out. They might need some, they may have to cool this device a little bit better, and the bigger size is going to help them as well, and also the bigger screen size and stuff, which we'll get into. But those are some of the reasons, but we'll talk about it at the end of the video too. But let's just keep going. What are some of the other changes? All right, change number 2 is they actually think the watch is going to be getting slightly thinner, all right? So you imagine it's getting bigger, but it's going to be getting slightly thinner, which Apple actually says, or some of the comments on here say, could alleviate some of the size, where it seems like it's getting way bigger because now you're getting a little bit thinner, but you're also getting the screen's getting bigger. So it may not look as big, or it might not be as bulky on the wrist, but overall, it's still going to be a bigger device overall. And this actually makes sense because Apple seems to be making everything thinner again, and I don't know why they're doing that. We talked about it on the MacBooks. We talked about the 14-inch MacBook and the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Why in the world are they going back to this? I mean, we all agreed that at one time those actually getting thicker was a good thing because they were able to cool them better. So who knows why they're doing this again, but it seems like everything from the iPads, the iPhone Slims coming out, the MacBook design maybe is going to be thinner. If not this year, I think they're going to be the same this year, but in 2025 they want to go thinner, they're saying, with those things for that major redesign. And now actually the watch is going to be thinner. You guys have to tell me, what is Apple doing here? The watch makes sense though. That's the only one I think out of all of them that makes sense because you don't usually have to do too much processing, but that could change also. All right, the third change that we think is coming is Apple might be putting a brand new chip in this watch, and it's going to be dubbed kind of the S10, I believe is what they call it. Now, it's going to be obviously faster in every way, and that could be the reason why they're making it bigger, maybe a little bit thinner, but bigger as well. Because, at the end of the day, they're going to probably need to cool this thing. They're probably going to need to use some AI functionality with this. I already read that the watch it's not going to have full AI functionality from the beginning, but if you think about it, you always have your phone on you. So if you probably have one of the updated phones like the iPhone 16 and stuff, it may be able to talk to that watch and pass some of the AI technology over to the watch, but the watch is still going to need upgraded RAM. At least they say 8 gigabytes for, computers and stuff like that to use AI. Maybe in the watch though, it's going to be a little bit less than that because it's not doing full AI. Maybe it's pulling from your phone. We don't know. Overall though, I think that the processor is going to be a substantial upgrade this time. Obviously with a smaller nanometer, they can make, things are going to be changing with the chips and stuff, but overall it's going to be a lot more power. But who knows? At least we know that the new chip's coming and it's going to be a faster model for sure. Now, Apple always likes to also come out with some health benefits to their watches. They always want to give you a better reason to upgrade, right? So this year, there's 2 of them that may come out. Now, this is a bigger gray area right here. We're not sure they're going to be coming out. They may be pushed back to next year because of some complications, but one of them is actually going to be the hypertension detection. It's going to basically be a monitor for blood pressure, more or less. Now, we don't know if this would be coming out on the watch. They talked about possibly working this into the band, another little sensor that would go on your wrist from, you have to buy a specialized band for this. So these are some questions that we still have not answered. So hypertension is one of them that could possibly be coming, and we just don't know for sure if that's really going to be the case. So that's one I think is kind of in the gray area right now, and we'll have to see if it actually comes. And then the next one's going to actually be sleep apnea. And that's actually going to be a sensor to help you see if you actually have that condition when you're sleeping. And again, this is another gray area because this is going to be the second possibility for a new feature added to the watch. But they don't think this may come this year as well because of some complications with patents and stuff when they fought another company earlier in the year. So we're going to hold off on saying those are coming for sure. But if they were actually going to be coming, those 2 would be coming, the hypertension one and the sleep one. And those are 2 possibilities on the Series 10. Okay, so the next change is a big one, and I think it's one of the biggest ones, and we think it's coming for sure. So let's do this. The actual screen technology built into these watches is going to be changing on the 10 series. And what is it going to be called? It says right here by Apple, it's expected to be called the Low Temperature Polycrystalline Oxide LTPO Thin Film Transistor TFT technology, and it's going to be a brand new OLED screen technology, which is really cool. So why would they be making this change on the thing? Well, let's talk about it. We know that the watch is going to be getting bigger, it's going to be getting thinner, but why would they make this change on the screen? The other screens seem good enough. One, it might boost the display quality without sacrificing battery. That's number one, a possibility, obviously, better screens. Number 2, it could basically have the quality unchanged, but give it a lot better battery life. We're all hoping for better battery life. If the screen was the same and battery life went up, I think that would be a huge positive as well. But the last thing it says here, basically it says, or it might shrink the watch's battery, offering the same battery life as last year, and use the extra space for other changes to support the outer casing. So what they're thinking is maybe this screen technology will basically mean that you can shrink the battery with the same amount of time battery life, but then actually it'll give more room for cooling, the faster CPU, for Apple Intelligence or other special features or sensors or whatever they have to do for maybe blood pressure monitoring, stuff like that. So we don't know, but that's actually what we think is coming. And then lastly, we think obviously the design might be changing a little bit because it's bigger and thinner, but as far as anything else, as far as the buttons and things like that, we don't think any of that's changing as of right now. There's not been any credible rumors. We've seen some diagrams as far as the watch. I'll show it to you right here, but kind of schematics of the watch and what it's going to look like. It looks very similar to what it did before. We think there's going to be more design changes coming possibly with the Ultra later, maybe not in September, maybe later in the year in 2024, 2025, or the next iteration, but at least there hasn't been any credible information coming out about a really big change in how it's going to actually look. So as far as the design changes, we don't know. And then the band changes. We actually had rumors about a band changing. It would have an easier mechanism for taking it on and off the bands. And like I said, there could be maybe some of these sensors built into the band coming up that Apple could surprise us with. We just don't know. Obviously, we think some of the bands could be changing, but I'm talking about the technology that goes into like installing them on the watch and taking them off and the clamp systems and stuff like that. And we haven't seen any real hard, credible evidence. We've seen a few rumors on that, but nothing set in stone yet. So we can't say with any certainty that's actually going to be coming. We just have to wait and see. Hopefully they'll surprise us with that. We just don't know. And then finally, just some odds and ends that we can wrap this up with, some little kind of miscellaneous stuff. Number one is it says it's going to be around 200 nits of brightness and 326 PPI as far as the resolution. So about 200 nits of brightness is going to be great for being outside and stuff like that. So that's going to help. It's going to have a 64 gigabyte storage option on it as well. It's going to have basically Bluetooth 5.3 and 36 hours of battery life they're kind of claiming. We always hope for about a week, right? That's my claim. I want it to be a week, but we're a couple years from that. But 36 hours is still, a day and a half. Not terrible. I want more though. I wish they could do more, especially with all these changes. I wish they would stop making things smaller and thinner and stuff and just make a bigger battery, but who knows. And then basically they think on the starting price, the 45 millimeter with 64 gigabytes of storage will be $449. 50 millimeters, 64 gigabytes of storage will be $499. So $459, $499 for the difference in the size there. And that's kind of the odds and ends right there. And so when are these actually going to be coming out? Well, historically, they've always kind of launched with the iPhones, and the iPhone 16 is coming out, we think, around September 10th. So we think these are going to be coming out in September 10th, which is actually, what is it, about 20 days roughly from now. Whenever, obviously, if you watch this video later, it's not going to be 20 days, but somewhere in that time frame. It's going to only be a few weeks before these come out. We'll know all the details of them. So you guys post in the comments, what do you think is going to, did I miss anything here? Obviously, we know there's going to be some new technologies built into it. They're going to have to incorporate AI of some fashion, whether it's through the phone that you're using it, or it's going to have some kind of upgraded capabilities around AI. We know it's not going to be full-fledged AI like it would be on the Macs and like your iPad Pros and stuff like that. But we think it's going to have some iteration of it. It's going to take a little bit of time, just like they're doing with the other devices, to incorporate it in. But I think they made that chip strong enough, and they're going to be giving it more RAM as well to actually get into there. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. This is just a quick crash course on what we know so far, what the latest rumors are as of a couple days ago. And these, obviously things are going to change. Sometimes it's fluid and things come in at the last second we don't know about. But I think a lot of these things are set in stone right now, at least some of them. We don't know about the health stuff. The health stuff could be delayed. That would be a huge, a lot of people are waiting for blood pressure monitoring and helping with their sleep and stuff like that. So that could be a major change and a major selling point for people if Apple has it this year, but it could be next year and that. So you guys tell me in the comments, what do you think's going on here? Do you think all these things are coming, or did I miss something again? Post in the comments, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.